Lincoln's Cooper Union Speech Part 3, a close reading by Stacy Hoflick.
So for the first part of the Cooper Union Address, Abraham Lincoln, the lengthiest part of the Cooper Union Address, Abraham Lincoln had been going through this whole study of the Constitution and rebutting Stephen Douglas's claim that the Founding Fathers understood that the federal government had no right to talk about slavery in the Western territories. That was the meatiest chunk of the speech. That second portion was Abraham Lincoln speaking directly to the Southern people and ended that portion of the speech calling them little tyrants, saying they will rule or ruin in any event. For this third portion, this final piece of the speech, he turns his gaze once more to a completely different audience. At this point, he turns to speak directly to Republicans, my fellow Republicans. He's talking to Republicans, he's talking to Republican sympathizers, he's talking to possible votes, constituents. He is standing there as possible candidate to be, he's not an official candidate yet, for President of the United States in 1860, and he is succinctly and articulately stating the Republican platform. He's making sure that everyone's clear, this is what Republicans believe, this is what I believe, and in his very earnest and honest Abe kind of way, he is convincing them this is what we believe and need to do. So he starts in a very sort of conciliatory tone. He says to his fellow Republicans, "It is exceedingly desirable that all parts of this great Confederacy shall be at peace and in harmony, one with another. Let us Republicans do our part to have it so. Even though much provoked, let us do nothing through passion and ill temper. Even though the Southern people will not so much as listen to us, let us calmly consider their demands and yield to them, if in our deliberate view of our duty we possibly can." He then goes on to question, what could we possibly do to satisfy the Southern people? Will they be satisfied if we do this? Will they be satisfied if we do that? And he comes to this ultimate conclusion very, very quickly. There's nothing that we can do to satisfy them. I'm sorry, there's one thing that we could do to satisfy them. And he says, what will satisfy them? Simply this: we must not only let them alone, but we must somehow convince them that we do let them alone. This and only this: cease to call slavery wrong and join them in calling it right. They will continue to accuse us of doing until we cease saying. So pretty clearly what he's saying is the only thing, fellow Republicans, that will satisfy our Southern brethren is for us to declare that slavery is not wrong, for us to say slavery is right. Because, again, succinctly, he summarizes, their thinking it right and our thinking it wrong is the precise fact upon which depends the whole controversy. Yes, this is exactly the problem. They think it's right and we think it's wrong. What are we supposed to do about that? Are we supposed to claim that it's not wrong? Is there some way that we can claim it's not wrong? No. Republicans think it's wrong. I, Abraham Lincoln, think slavery is wrong. And there is no other way that you can look at it. Either you think it's right or you think it's wrong. And according to Abraham Lincoln in this moment, the only thing that will make the Southern people happy is for the Republicans to go complete 180 and say, okay, slavery is not wrong. He can't do it. He believes that slavery is a moral evil. He's pretty clear. He's not trying to eliminate slavery everywhere. He does believe that it will work its way to its ultimate extinction, and he does believe that that was the original intent of the Founding Fathers, going back to that first part of the speech. But what the Republicans are arguing and articulating as their platform in this moment has nothing to do with eliminating slavery as it exists currently in the Southern states. What the Republican Party is articulating is a refusal to allow slavery to go further into the Western territories and expand into those states made from the Western territories. Now, to be fair, Southern people hearing this speech are not going to hear that slavery is going to be left alone. They understand that once the vote count of free states versus slave states becomes completely disproportionate, it's quite possible that slavery will be voted out at some point. However, what Abraham Lincoln and the Republicans are stating in no uncertain terms in this moment in time, let's leave slavery alone in the Southern states as it exists, and let's hope that it will work its way to its ultimate extinction by the Southern people themselves extinguishing it. Either way, in 1860, in this moment in time, what the Republicans are arguing about is just keeping it from expanding into the Western territories. So there's either you think it's right or you think it's wrong. And here's where he ends his speech in this moment, going back to the beginning and going back to Stephen Douglas. Now, he doesn't mention Stephen Douglas by name, but it's very clear from his words that he's talking about Stephen Douglas. There is no middle ground, he says. He says, "Let us be diverted by none of those sophistical contrivances wherewith we were so industriously plied and belabored, contrivances such as groping for some middle ground between right and the wrong, vain as the search for a man who should be neither a living man nor a dead man. Such is a policy of don't care on a question about which all true men do care." You can't not care about it. There is no middle ground. Either slavery is right or slavery is wrong. Southern people think slavery is right. Republicans think slavery is wrong. That's it. There's nothing else to it. And he doesn't understand what Stephen Douglas is saying and doing, and he's calling him out on it. How can there be middle ground? You're either alive or you're dead. That's all there is to it. And so he finishes this moment with this all capital letters statement, this charge to his fellow Republicans. He says, "Let us have faith that right makes might, and that in that faith, let us, to the end, dare to do our duty as we understand it." He's leaving his Southern, his Republican constituents, his Republican sympathizers, his Republican voters, his Republican friends with this charge. We need to do our duty. We believe slavery is wrong. We need to keep slavery out of those Western territories. And it is our duty to do it, and we can do it, and the Founding Fathers did it, and we're trying to do the same thing that the Founding Fathers are doing, and that puts us on the side of right. And that's how he ends his speech. So this is happening in February of 1860. Interesting side note is that he has his photograph taken with Mathew Brady hours before he gives this speech. And Mathew Brady's photograph, a woodcut of that photograph, becomes the front cover of Harper's Weekly in May of 1860, when Abraham Lincoln has presented himself as candidate for Republican, candidate for President of the United States. This speech has Abraham Lincoln on the cusp of this, and it is this speech which was so well received, applauded, thunderously applauded, so well received by New York, puts him with a whole new audience in a whole new way to be well known. He has his picture circulated so that more than just those from the Midwest or from Illinois could vote for this new upstart for President of the United States.